It is late. You stopped checking the time a while ago. Your phone is face down on the table. Not because you are practicing stillness, because you already know there is nothing there. No message, no accountability, no acknowledgement of any kind. Just the particular quiet of a room that holds more than it shows. You look at nothing specific. A wall, a window, some middle distance between where you are and where you expected to be by now. You are not crying. You are past the crying part that came and went several times. Now it is just this low, steady, unnamed weight that sits in your chest like something that belongs to someone else, someone who was supposed to carry it with you. Somewhere out there, the person who hurt you is living their life completely, normally, and you are here, still carrying this chosen one. I need to talk to you about a question that most people carry quietly for a very long time without ever saying it out loud. Not in church, not in prayer, not even in the careful, private conversations with God where we edit ourselves less than we think. It is not the question of what to do about what happened to you. That is the surface question, the manageable one. The deeper question, the one underneath everything else, sounds like this. Does God even see this? Not in a general theological sense, not the comfortable reminder that God is omniscient in the specific, personal, sometimes unbearable sense. Does he see this person who wronged me still continuing, still unaffected? Does he see the door they closed in my face while they kept walking through their own? Does he see what it has cost me to stay faithful when I had every human reason to retaliate? Does he see me right here, carrying this alone in the quiet of an ordinary evening? Because if he does, why has nothing happened? That is the real question, the one that has no easy answer, and I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist. Set aside everything you were taught that justice is supposed to look like. The courtroom, the public verdict, the formal acknowledgement. What justice actually feels like from the inside of a real wound is simpler than all of that, and more desperate. It feels like needing someone to say, "What happened to you mattered. I saw it. It was real. It counted." Not necessarily for revenge, not even for public vindication, just for the knowing. Just for one witness who refuses to pretend that wrong things are fine. And here is what most people never hear. You were made in the image of a God who is just. That means the ache of injustice you carry is not bitterness. It is not spiritual immaturity. It is not a sign that you haven't forgiven. It is the image of God in you responding exactly the way it was designed to respond when it encounters something that should not be. The God who placed that sense of justice inside you hears the cry it produces. He hears it more clearly than you hear it yourself, and he does not dismiss it. Before we go any further, I want to plant something in your mind. Just a question. I'm not going to resolve it yet. I want you to think about what you have not done. The message you chose not to send, even though the reason you had for sending it was completely legitimate. The truth you kept to yourself, even while the version of you they were circulating was still being believed by people who should have asked. The door you kept showing up to faithfully, even after they tried to make you feel like someone who didn't belong there anymore. The person who wronged you does not know any of this. They do not know the daily cost of your restraint. They have no idea what it required of you to stay quiet, stay clean, and keep your integrity intact in a season that gave you every excuse to abandon it. But God knows. He has been watching every single one of those choices. And here is the question I want you to hold. What if that quiet, costly, invisible faithfulness, the thing that looks from the outside like you're simply doing nothing, is not weakness? What if it is the exact posture God has been positioning you in? Don't answer yet. Let it sit. Chosen one, I want to be honest with you about what today is and what it is not. This is not a message that will tell you when God will move. I cannot make that promise. I do not have that information, but I can promise you this. By the time we finish today, you will not be looking at this season the same way. The pain is real. I am not here to minimize it. What happened to you specifically actually happened, and it mattered. But the story is not over. And what I most want you to hear today, the thing I most need to establish before we go any further, is this. The ending of this story does not belong to the person who hurt you. They do not get to write it. They never did. The ending belongs to the God who has been holding your story since before the wound was ever inflicted. And that God, the one you've been praying to in the quiet, carrying this alone, He is not the kind of God who lets injustice have the final word. Stay with me. I am not going to ask you to name them out loud. You know who we are talking about. It may be a friend who was in your corner until the season arrived, where being in your corner actually cost something, and then they disappeared. Not dramatically, just quietly. The way people do when they never meant to be there for the expensive part. It may be someone at work, someone who took something that was yours, your idea, your opportunity, your credit, and looked at you while doing it. It may be a family member, and that is its own particular kind of wound, because those don't have clean edges. The relationship is still there, just changed, carrying something it didn't used to carry. Or it may be someone who simply believed the wrong story about you, who accepted a version of you that was never true and never once thought to ask. You don't have to name them out loud, but they are real. What they did was real. The cost was real. I need you to know that I am beginning here, in the full, undiminished truth of what happened, before I move anywhere else. Because you have been told to move past it too quickly for too long. There are two wounds, and almost every conversation about being hurt only acknowledges the first one. The first wound is what they did. The action, the words, the decision, the deliberate absence when you needed presence. That wound is visible. You can describe it. People understand it. But the second wound, the one that is almost never named, is what you had to do with yourself in the aftermath. The part of you that learned to be quiet about something loud, the part of you that sat in your car on a Tuesday morning with the engine off because you couldn't go inside yet, and you couldn't go back home, and you just needed somewhere to fall apart that was yours alone. The part of you that smiled in the right rooms and carried the weight into the private ones, the part of you that chose day after day, without recognition, without applause, without anyone noticing, not to retaliate, not to expose, not to let what they did to you determine what you became. That restraint has cost you something, every single time. And chosen one, Psalm 37, describes your position precisely. It says, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Be still." That is not a passive instruction. That is one of the most spiritually expensive acts of obedience in the entire Bible. And you have been practicing it. Before I tell you what God is doing in this season, I want to tell you first what He thinks of the pain you are in. C.S. Lewis, the Oxford scholar, the former atheist who came to faith through reason rather than comfort, spent years wrestling with what God does with human suffering. In The Problem of Pain, he wrote something that I believe is directly relevant to where you are sitting right now. He wrote, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is His megaphone to rouse a deaf world." A megaphone. The pain you are carrying right now is not evidence of God's absence. It is His loudest form of communication The intensity of what you have been feeling, the fact that it will not stay quiet, will not let you simply move on, will not politely wait for a more convenient season. Lewis is telling you that is not accidental. God is not ignoring your pain. He is using it. The wound became the instrument. And through that instrument, He is doing something in you that pleasure and comfort and unanswered prayer never could. If you are walking through this, if you are feeling this today, say in your heart, I trust what you are doing through this. I need to say something plainly. You were not wrong to feel betrayed. You were not spiritually immature when it broke you. You were not being faithless when the tears came and wouldn't stop. There are well-meaning people and well-meaning sermons that rush past the wound to the lesson. And I understand why. The lesson is important. But skipping past the wound to arrive at the lesson too quickly is a kind of spiritual injury in itself, because it communicates without intending to that the pain should have been smaller, that you should have moved through it faster. That faith means not feeling it as deeply as you did. None of that is true. God is not disappointed in you for feeling the full weight of what happened. He is not waiting for you to emote less before He moves. He put the sense of justice inside you because He is a God of justice. The ache you feel when wrong things go unaddressed is the image of God in you functioning exactly as it was designed. If you have been carrying guilt along with the wound, if there is a voice somewhere telling you that a more spiritual person would be further along by now, put that voice down first. You were allowed to feel this, all of it, exactly as deeply as you felt it. Take one breath, just one, because what I am about to share with you is not a motivational concept. It is not one of those spiritual phrases that feels true in the moment and fades by Thursday. What I am about to show you is woven into the character of God, older than the New Testament, present in the architecture of how He engages with human injustice, from the very first moment that one person wronged another. And once you understand it, not as a nice idea, but as a truth that reshapes how you see your situation, it will change the posture you carry into everything that comes next. So stay with me. We are going somewhere real. There is a principle woven through the entire biblical record, from the Psalms to the prophets, from the early letters of Paul to the book of Revelation, that is easy to read quickly and move past without letting it fully land. God does not forget. Not in the general, theological, reassuring sense of the phrase. In a specific, meticulous, almost legal sense. Every tear you cried that had no audience. Every door closed in your face while you were fully qualified and completely faithful. Every moment you were dismissed, minimized, spoken over, or simply not seen. Every lie told about you in a room you were not in. Every opportunity taken by someone who did not earn it. More honestly, they simply had less restraint about how they obtained it. All of it, not most of it, all of it, has been recorded. And I want to be precise about what I mean, because this is not spiritual encouragement I am offering you. This is the operational structure of who God is. He is not a God who observes injustice and shrugs. He is a God who keeps record, not as a mechanism of arbitrary punishment, but because genuine justice, actual justice, requires that nothing be lost and nothing be overlooked. The Apostle Paul wrote his letter to the Romans, to a community that understood real persecution, not career disappointment, not social exclusion, real loss, real suffering at the hands of people with power who used it without accountability. And to those people in that specific, costly, real context, he wrote in Romans 12 verse 19, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge. I will repay,' says the Lord." Read that slowly. Notice what he does not say. He does not say, forget it. He does not say, minimize it. He does not say, convince yourself that what happened wasn't really that serious. He says, leave room. That phrase, leave room, is a spatial metaphor. It implies a gap, a space that must be consciously held open. And what Paul is communicating to people who had every human reason to fill that gap themselves is that there is a place being reserved specifically for divine action in your situation. God has assigned space to this case. He has not delegated it. He has not put it in a general queue. He has it. Your role is not to fill that space with your own enforcement. Your role is to protect it, to leave it open, to trust that when God moves into that reserved space, He will not need your help to do it right. C.S. Lewis was not simply a professor who thought clearly about theology. He was a person who had been genuinely wronged, deeply wronged in ways that did not resolve quickly or neatly. And in his wrestling with what forgiveness actually means, in his honest engagement with the Psalms and their raw cries for justice, he offered an observation that I believe is one of the most honest things ever written about what being wronged does to a person over time. He reflected that to be wronged is nothing unless you continue to remember it. Now, I want to be very careful here, because Lewis is not saying the wound was nothing. He is saying something far more precise. The original wrong, the act itself, happened once. It was finite. It had a moment. But the wound lives on and deepens and compounds only through the repeated act of returning to it. Every time you go back and hold it in your hands again, you are not remembering a past event. You are reopening an active wound. And the person who created that wound, in most cases, they have moved on. They are not revisiting it. They are not re-experiencing anything, which means that every time you return to it, you are voluntarily extending their presence in your life, past the moment they were supposed to leave. The wound was not your choice, but the keeping of it, that is a choice. And Lewis is asking you, with honesty and without condemnation, is it worth the cost of continuing to hold it? If you feel something loosening in you today, say in your heart, I release it. It is yours. I want to ask you something honest. How much of your life has gone there? Not in the large dramatic moments, in the quiet, daily, invisible ones. The 10 minutes on a Wednesday morning when the scene plays back in your mind again, on a day when nothing even triggered it. The perfect response you have rehearsed internally 100 times. The moment you check their social media, not out of any real concern for them, but from the part of you that still needs to see something move, some acknowledgement, some accountability arrive. The involuntary tightening in your stomach when their name appears in a conversation. All of that is life, your actual life, moving into a case that has already ended for the other party and chosen one. I want to say this with as much love as I am capable of. You cannot afford to keep paying rent in someone else's story. Your story is happening right now. While you are in that loop, something is being constructed on the other side of it, for you, not for them. You are missing the building process because you are still watching the door they walk through. But your door, the one God has been preparing, it is not behind theirs. It leads somewhere they were never going with you. Let me say this clearly before we continue. God is not passive about what happened to you. He is not observing from a comfortable distance. He is not a referee on the sideline waiting for the final score. He is present in this, specifically, precisely, personally present. He saw every detail you saw. He saw every detail you didn't see. He was in the rooms you weren't in. He heard the conversations that were held in your absence. He observed the motive underneath the action, the real motive, not the one that was presented publicly. He saw all of it, including, and I want you to hear this specifically, the part where you chose faithfulness when unfaithfulness was fully available to you. The part where you stayed quiet, stayed clean, stayed whole, when everything in you wanted to fight back. He saw that most of all, and he has not concluded the case. He is not looking at your situation with a sense of vague spiritual sympathy. He knows exactly what just and complete resolution looks like here. He is not confused. He is not slow. He is not done. There is a moment that arrives. And if you have been genuinely wronged, actually wronged, not just inconvenienced or disappointed, you know exactly the moment I am describing. Something rises up inside you that is not quite anger and not quite grief. It is sharper than both. It is a clarity, a certainty, sudden and complete, that enough is enough and something needs to happen right now. Maybe the impulse is to post something, to put the documented truth in a place where everyone who was given the wrong version of you can finally see the real one. Maybe it is to pick up the phone and make one call, one carefully targeted, completely justified call that would begin to unravel everything they have built while you were silent. Maybe it is simpler than that, just to walk into the right room and speak. I understand that impulse with precision. I am not here to shame it. It comes from the same God-given instinct for justice that we have been talking about. But I want to ask you the question that I think is underneath the impulse. When it rises, what are you actually looking for? Is it justice or is it peace? Because those two things, as much as they feel like the same thing in the moment, are not, and they do not arrive from the same place. See me. S. Lewis wrote something in Mere Christianity that I want to bring here carefully, because I believe it answers the question I just asked you about what you are actually looking for when that impulse rises. Lewis wrote, God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. There is no such thing as peace apart from God. Follow that thought all the way to its conclusion. If there is no peace outside of God, then the peace you are actually seeking cannot arrive through their exposure. It cannot come from the apology they may never give. It cannot be delivered by the moment they are finally publicly held accountable, not because those things are unimportant, but because the peace you are looking for does not live in any of those locations. It was never there. Lewis is telling you something that requires real honesty to receive. The most complete, most satisfying act of justice imaginable will not give you what you are actually looking for, because what you are actually looking for is settledness, a deep, unshakable conviction that everything is going to be okay. And that says Lewis does not exist anywhere outside of God. The path to it is not through them. The path is through trust. And trust is something you can begin right now, in this moment, before anything has changed externally. In Luke chapter 18, Jesus told a story. A woman had been wronged. She had a legitimate case, and she brought it before a judge who, by Jesus' own description, was unjust. Someone who did not fear God and did not concern himself with fairness. And this judge, this deliberately imperfect, self-interested, uncaring judge, eventually gave her what she came for, not out of compassion, not because he finally understood, simply because she would not stop coming. Jesus then pivoted from the parable to the principle. He asked, "Will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly." Hear that contrast. If even an unjust judge responds to a persistent cry, how much more certain is the response of a perfectly just God to the cry of the ones he specifically, personally chose? Not eventually, not in a general spiritual sense. quickly. Chosen one, the prayer you have been praying, the cry that has come out of this season, has been received by a God who is not neutral on your case. He has not put it in a general queue. He is moving. And when He arrives, it will not be partial. Say this with me. He is moving. I trust His timing. I want to reframe what you have been doing, not chasing them, not exposing them on your own timeline and in your own way, not forcing an outcome that you can engineer from where you're currently standing. I know that has probably looked from the outside and sometimes from the inside, like passivity, like losing, like being the person who didn't fight for themselves. I want to name that reframe clearly and completely. That is not what it is. When you choose to hold your integrity intact while someone else operates without theirs. When you choose faithfulness in an environment specifically designed to exhaust it, you are doing something that looks like nothing from the outside and is everything from the inside. You are clearing the ground. You are removing yourself from the equation and saying to God with your choices, your restraint, your daily faithfulness, this is yours. I trust your hands more than I trust mine. And in making that choice, that costly, invisible, entirely misunderstood choice, you are opening a door that your retaliation would have permanently closed. The door to divine justice, moving unimpeded. You cannot do what God does, but you can get out of the way and let Him do it. That is the most powerful posture in the kingdom. You are not losing, you are positioning, and your position has never been stronger. Something is happening in you right now. You may not feel it yet as a feeling, but it is there. The shift from bitter waiting to expectant trust does not happen in a single dramatic moment. It happens in conversations like this one, where the same facts begin to carry a different meaning, where the wound is still real, but the interpretation of it has changed. You have not erased anything. Not one wound, not one injustice, not one moment of unfair cost, but you are beginning to hold it differently. You are moving, maybe for the first time, from carrying it as a problem you are responsible for solving, to placing it as a trust in the hands of someone who has never lost a case. He has decided to take that shift, that invisible, interior, seemingly small shift, is the posture that changes everything that happens next. Not demanding, not panicking, not engineering, just trusting with open hands, with your eyes set forward toward what God is building even now, even here on the other side of this. I want to go back to where we started today, that late night, the phone face down on the table, the weight that was just there, unnamed, steady, present. The silence that held everything you hadn't said. I want to return to that specific moment and show you something that was invisible in it, something you had no access to seeing from where you were standing. In that moment when you chose not to send the message, when you chose prayer in the quiet instead of exposure on a platform, when you kept showing up to the place they tried to take from you, kept doing faithful work in the environment where they tried to make you look small, something was happening beneath the surface of that scene that had nothing to do with the people who wronged you. God was building, not around what happened to you, on the foundation of how you responded to it. Every quiet choice of faithfulness in the nights when you had every legitimate human right to fight back and chose not to. Every prayer that no one heard except God. Every morning you got up and kept going when staying down would have been completely understandable. That was not just coping, it was material. God was constructing your vindication out of your own faithfulness in the hardest part of the season. The foundation is already laid. You built it without knowing you were building it. I want to say something about God's timing, but I want to say it differently than you have heard it before. Because I know that God's timing is perfect, has become so familiar a phrase that it can arrive and leave without landing. So I want to distinguish between two things that are often confused. God is not slow, He is precise. Those are fundamentally different. Slow is when something is falling through the cracks. Slow is disorganized. Slow is insufficient attention. Slow is systems failing. Precision is the complete opposite. Precision is watching every variable, every person involved, every related circumstance, every downstream effect, and waiting for the exact right intersection of conditions where movement produces an outcome that cannot be undone. Human justice moves quickly, and because it moves quickly, it often misses. Partial information, incomplete rulings, outcomes that unravel within a year. When God moves, He has been watching the entire system. He has heard every side. He has seen the full picture, including the parts no one presented to you. He is waiting for a moment that does not merely correct the situation, but changes the narrative so completely that what they intended to bury you with becomes the very thing He builds the next chapter on. The delay is not absence. The delay is precision being applied. And when it arrives, you will understand the wait. Say this with me. He is not late. He is precise. I want to bring you to Isaiah 61 verse 7. God is speaking to people who have been publicly shamed, not privately disappointed, publicly diminished. People who were faithful in their calling and were treated as if they were not, who gave everything and were publicly discredited. And to those people, those specific, real, named people, God said, instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. Not restored, not repaired, not returned to baseline, double. God does not simply undo the injustice. He does not restore you to the position you held before the wound. He exceeds the original so completely, so thoroughly, that the wound becomes unrecognizable in the presence of what He builds after it. The testimony becomes so much larger than the injury, that people who watch the injury will struggle to believe it is the same story. The thing they use to diminish you becomes the evidence in the room they tried to keep you out of. That is not a spiritual metaphor. That is a covenant promise from a God who has never made a promise He did not fulfill. Double is coming, chosen one. There are people who have been watching you, not the ones who wronged you, the ones at the edges, the ones who were not sure what to make of what was happening, the ones who watched you keep going when the situation gave you every legitimate reason to stop, who watched you show up with integrity in a season where no one would have blamed you for losing it, who found themselves quietly, privately wondering, how is this person still standing? What are they drawing from? Those people have not forgotten what they observed. They are still in the periphery, and they are going to be in the room when God moves in your situation. They were witnesses to the faithfulness. Now they will be witnesses to the vindication, and they will have the context that most people never have because they were watching both. They will see the full arc. They will understand what the breakthrough cost, and they will understand why the breakthrough is undeniable. Your integrity in this season was never just personal discipline. It was your testimony being written in real time. A testimony needs witnesses, and the witnesses are already positioned. Chosen one, I need to say this to you clearly. You have not been forgotten. The God who knows the number of hairs on your head, not approximately, not in general terms, specifically, individually, actually knows, has not forgotten a single detail of what happened to you. Not the moment you thought passed without a witness. Not the conversation held about you in a room you were not in. Not the wound that lives in the part of you that has never fully found the words for it. He knows all of it, and what every one of those experiences failed to accomplish, regardless of what they were designed to accomplish, is disqualify you. They did not disqualify you. They documented you. They documented the depth of the faithfulness you demonstrated under conditions that were specifically designed to break it. They are part of the evidence. You are not at the end of your story. You are standing at the threshold of its next chapter. And the chapter you're about to step into was written specifically for someone who walked through exactly what you walked through and kept going anyway. That person is you. Stand up, chosen one. You are not behind. You are right on time. I want to come back to where we started. That weight, the one that was present before you pressed play today, the one that has been in the background of everything for days or weeks or perhaps longer than you want to calculate, the one you do not bring up anymore because at some point it started to feel like a character limitation to still be carrying it, like maybe someone more spiritually mature would have set it down already. I want to talk to that part of you, the part that has been faithful without recognition, the part that has stayed quiet when staying quiet cost something real, the part that kept showing up to the same environment where they tried to reduce you and showed up with full integrity anyway. That part of you can put it down now, not because what happened was not real, not because it did not matter, not because you are giving up or conceding or accepting something that should never have been accepted. You can put it down because the God who handles these things with perfect wisdom and perfect justice is asking you specifically, personally, in this moment, to place it in His hands. He is asking you because He is ready. Not ready soon, not almost ready, ready. This is not a prayer of giving up. It is not a prayer that minimizes the wound. It is not a concession that what happened was acceptable. It is a prayer of trust. And the difference between giving up and trusting God is everything. Giving up says, it doesn't matter. Trust says, it matters, which is why I'm placing it with the only one who can handle it rightly. If you can say this today, even if it is quiet, even if your voice is unsteady, it will do something in you that no act of retaliation ever could. Say it with me. Or let it be said over you, God, I have been holding this case, reviewing it, returning to it, protecting it, because I was afraid that releasing it meant releasing its importance. But today I am giving it to you, not because the people who wronged me deserve release, but because I deserve the peace that lives on the other side of holding this the way I have been holding it. I trust your justice over mine. I trust your timeline over my urgency. I release the people who wronged me, not to excuse them, but to step out of the way of what you are already doing. God, it is yours. Move in it. I trust you, and I receive the peace that comes with that trust. There are two kinds of waiting, and if you have been in a season like the one we have been describing today, you have probably lived in both. The first kind of waiting is bitter. It checks. Every day or so, it returns to the question of whether accountability has arrived. It watches for signs that the situation has begun to catch up with the people involved. It keeps a quiet internal record of the distance between what happened and what should have happened by now. And slowly, without deciding to, without wanting to, it grows harder, calcified, less free, less full. Not because that person deserves the energy being spent on them, but because bitter waiting takes something from the person doing it, regardless of what it does to anyone else. The second kind of waiting is entirely different. Expectant waiting does not need to check. It knows the case has been received. It does not need to manage the outcome, because it is genuinely convinced that the one managing it cannot be outmaneuvered, and so it lives, fully, presently, forward-facing, with a hope that is not anxious and a rest that is not complacent. Today, chosen one, you are moving from the first to the second, from bitter to expectant, from monitoring to trusting, from managing to releasing, you are allowed to rest, and you are allowed to expect great things. Let me close with the character of God, because everything we have walked through today rests on this foundation. If you believe that God is just, you can trust the case you have placed in His hands. If you believe He is present, not generally present, but specifically present in your situation, then the timing question changes entirely. The God who counts the stars, not as a group, but each one, individually named, is the God who has not missed a single detail of what happened to you. He did not observe it generally. He observed it the way He observes a sparrow, not just knowing it will fall, noticing the specific fall, the specific moment, the specific bird. That is the God who has your case. He is not distracted by the scale of everything else He manages simultaneously. He is personally engaged with the outcome of your specific situation. He is working in dimensions you cannot observe yet, with information you have not been given access to, on a timeline that is more precise than anything human justice has ever been capable of producing. Trust that. Not because you can see the movement, but because of who He has proven Himself to be. That is faith, and chosen one, that is more than enough. You are a chosen one, and the God who chose you before the wound, before the season, before you understood any of this, is the same God who defends you. Walk forward today, not in bitterness, not in the need to prove yourself to people who formed opinions without asking, not in the anxious monitoring of a situation that you have already placed in more capable hands. Walk forward knowing that what was done in the darkness will be brought into the light, not because you forced it, not because you orchestrated it, but because that is what light does. Walk forward knowing that the injustice has a verdict, and the verdict has already been written, not delivered yet, but written, and the God who wrote it does not write things He does not intend to bring to pass. When it comes, chosen one, it will not arrive partially. It will not be half the justice the situation requires. It will come with the fullness and the precision of a God who has never once miscalculated, never underestimated, and never, not once in the entire history of everything He has touched, missed. Rest in that. Walk forward in that. The verdict is written. Your name is on it. It is coming. And it is precise.